Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Devin Thomas back with another episode of Unscripted. It's been a good week, guys. It's been a good week. I've been very, very busy this week. What have I been up to? This week, I've been writing a fucking ton. I've been writing just pretty much every night, every day. You know, kind of just, it's been nice out. So I've been kind of like, not lounging, but I've been going out and enjoying the sunshine, trying to get out there and, you know, just at least enjoy the little bit of summer we've been getting. Because so far, it's been kind of shit. And we truly had like one of those cold fucking Junes, like the June gloom. It was a real thing here. And anyways, besides the point, I fucking, you know, been lounging outside, just trying to fucking get sunshine, taking walks, enjoying the summertime as much as I can. And in between that, I've been writing like a madman. I wrote, I think I mentioned it on the last pod or maybe the pod before, but I was writing this kind of like a road thriller with horror elements. Obviously, it's definitely more horror driven, but that being said, I had this idea that I've been like brewing on for years. I love slasher. I love horror. The Mount Rushmore, you know, fucking Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, who's up there? Mike Myers, Halloween, you know, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween. Those are the ones that, like, you know, everyone knows. Those are the big ones. And like, I was actually talking with Stevie about this. I'm like, why are they the biggest? It's like, because they're the fucking, like, they created the genre, those killers. They were the first killers that we had. And like, I kind of feel like there hasn't been a character like that in a long time. I know there's the Terrifier movies and I hear good things. I personally have like dabbled in them. I'm not trying to sound like, oh, he's not in tune with the horror market, but it's just, I've tried to watch them. I've watched, I think, the first one that was very low budget. And I was like, I appreciated it because of the low budgetness. I was like, wow, what a bold choice to kind of like move into that territory and just say, fuck it. Like, you're not going to let limitations stop you at all. You're going to be like, I'm going to make this movie on my terms and do it how I want to do it. And I've heard the guy's story. He started small and he really built this character up and he created him into the person that he is today, or the brand, right? The IP is huge. And I think he's doing numbers that studios are jealous of because he's got his movie going out and he's making the box office, you know, cash out. He's also got, you know, the character now that he can just continue to make money off of. So anyways, what I'm saying is like, we haven't had a character in a while. I mean, I think I'm leaving out Freddy Krueger. Maybe I do like Nightmare. I like the OG the most, but besides the point, like, those are them. You know, there's Chucky. If I'm missing some, you know, let me know. But besides the point, I've created this character named Slugger. And it's a character, I was literally talking to Stevie before I started this podcast as well. And I said, when do you think I really conceived this idea? And I was thinking probably like almost a decade ago, you know, maybe in the last 8 to 10 years. I can't remember exactly, you know, shit gets hazy. But that being said, I was just like, fuck it. You know, we've joked about it. He used to be like the character that if you were like writing a script, the characters I'd write are watching Slugger. And if I had a character in a movie who's auditioning for a movie, he'd be auditioning for this movie Slugger. So I always thought like, that's how I'll incorporate it in. Cause it seemed like such a ridiculous idea when I conceived it. And like, it felt like maybe this is a little, I wouldn't say out of like reach, but it seemed bigger. The idea seemed bigger at the time. In the, you know, more I got into screenwriting, the more I got into making films, the more I started thinking like this idea, like it just keeps calling to me. I've joked about it so much. I've parodied the idea to some extent, thinking like, oh, Slugger, like that movie about that guy. And I'll explain the idea in a second, but it's just funny. Like it's come all the way around to like actually being like, you know what? This idea is so ridiculous. It might be the right idea to make. So anyway, Slugger, here's the pitch. It's about a guy who is dressed in like, you know, baseball gear, a catcher's mask or a fucking, you know, baseball helmet with a visor. He's got catcher's gear on, and he carries a nail bat or like a bat with like a barbed wire, you know. His weapon of choice is a baseball bat. It's almost obvious. This Americana horror killer that, you know, goes around with a bat and kills people while whistling the tune of America's favorite pastime, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. It's, you know, it's my idea, my take, my flavor on a slasher character. And I'm even thinking about the idea. It's so ridiculous, but I just got done writing the script and we read it, you know, 75 pages, 80 pages, just like that. Like there was no question about it. The idea was good. And sometimes you got to know what you got. And I think that's kind of the feeling I have with Slugger is not only do I love the character and I love the concept, I even wrote a short literature on it. It's published. You can go on Amazon if you want to find Slugger. But, you know, like I said, the idea keeps calling. Obviously, there's a passion behind it. And there's something like, I think Slugger, like how I'm looking at doing this idea, because that was a fucking elevator pitch, like very brief. There's obviously a plot and like or not sub, but there's lore and shit about the character. But yeah, it's one of those things that like I feel like capitalizing on it now feels like the right time, because horror is a growing market. I love horror. There's like this natural sense of like, I don't know. Like I said, I've not even made fun of the character so much. I just like joked about it so much. And I've said like, what if we made it? And now that the script is done, the script reads, and the script reads good, and it reads like a 2000s horror movie. I'm trying to think of like what we were comparing it to. Kind of like Scream, in the sense of like the playfulness. Like if Scream, like when I watch Scream, sometimes I think this idea is like a straight fucking like comedy, because it's just so ridiculous. Like even the way the character moves, like Ghostface, and some of the shit they do, or the way they kill people. It's like, if you watch Scary Movie 1 and then you like cut scenes between that and the OG Scream, they're not, it's not a far cry. Like they're very similar. And I think that's something I wanted to bring to the table with Slugger, is like the idea was so ridiculous. I'm like, I can do it serious, but I can't do it too serious to the point where it's almost like, who are you fucking kidding? It needs to be fun. It needs to have that heartbeat of the 2000s where the characters were a little cocky and a little arrogant. Everyone was a little, sex crazed. Everybody was just trying to have a fucking good time. Life was a little simpler back then. I look at that, and that's something that in the modern day, we have so much like digital shit mixed into the script. And like, yeah, you can do that, but like I do some classic things to just like, erase as much of that as possible and really get people set back into just like, this is just how movies used to be. And I think it's a weird, maybe not weird thought on it, but that's just like my take, is like, I think movies have moved away from like some of the classic nature, and you can't go back to what movies 100% used to be, because like the game has changed. We're not shooting on film, we're shooting digital. I'll talk about that more later. But I think that you need to just let movies be organic and kind of like have fun and not try to make everything so serious. It's like kind of like, this is a way fucking off topic to some extent, but I've been watching like the old Batmans. I watched Batman Forever and I watched Batman and Robin. And watching Batman Forever, particularly this last time around, it is comic booky. It is ridiculous. It is so larger than life. But there was something about it, the campiness, that I was like, it's a comic book. Like, I kind of get why they made them like this before. Everything before that, to some extent, before Marvel came out in the early 2000s, they made a couple serious flicks. Yeah, the Hulk was a little bit darker take, still very comic book. Spider-Man, obviously smash hit. That was perfect. Like, that was probably the best. It was serious but comic booky. But after Chris Nolan came out and he made Batman Begins and Dark Knight, like everything in the Batman universe in particular has become so fucking serious. And I like the serious movies. I like the most recent, The Batman, with Robert Pattinson. I call him Robbie Pat the Bat. I think he's great. He's one of the better Batmans. But watching Batman Forever and watching Batman and Robin, I started thinking, I'm like, fuck, like, I get the campiness. I think some people want to just watch these movies and just complete escapism. When you watch Jim Carrey play the Riddler, or Tommy Lee Jones play Two-Face as Harvey Dent, it is fucking ridiculous. They knew the assignment. I watched it and I used to think like, God, they really just fucking overacted in these. If you go even back to like, I think there's like a 1940s or 50s version of Batman. I've watched a little bit of it. I mean, fuck, it's old, but if you're a Bat fan, you look. And yeah, I was just thinking like, damn, like even back then it was pretty playful. It was a little bit more on the nose of comic book culture versus being particularly auteur, art house, so serious. And I do like the Christopher Nolan movies. I think they're some of the best Batman. This is like the perfect Batman, perfect form, highest form of it. We probably don't need more Batman movies after that unless they're going to be fun. And that's what I'm saying. I think like culture is starting to move back towards fun and maybe the ridiculousness and the, we call it the comic bookness of life. I'm trying to think of a way to put it. The larger than life elements, just having fun, the campiness. People want shit to be campy. They want it to be, fun is the word I keep using, but I think they just want it to be escapism. They want something that they can go home and watch, and it takes you away from like the seriousness of life. And like, that's how I felt watching those Batmans. It's like, wow, they're just so campy and so ridiculous. Like nothing bad can kind of happen when you're watching something so fun. It really takes you out of the moment and puts you into that moment of ridiculousness. And that's, yeah, the suspension of disbelief. There's some scenes where it looks like they got fucking toy cars, but you know what? Or for their little models and shit during explosions. But you know what? Like, something about knowing that it's not 100% real, it's comforting. It's just, I don't know how to describe it, but I think with even Slugger, to bring it back to the fucking point, that is what I also intend to do moving forward on this film, is to make it something that when you watch, it's something you would throw on a hot summer day. It's the end of the day and you're like, fuck, let's just have fun. Let's just relax and chill out. I know it's a horror movie, but it's going to be a chill out horror. You'll be able to throw this thing on. It'll have scary, intense moments, but to some extent, you're going to have those things that make horror movies great. The friends going up to a cabin, enjoying themselves, and terror ensues. It sounds so basic, but it's so important. I think a lot of people overthink it. I personally I've written scripts that are more psychologically driven horrors, or it's a different pitch, and no pun intended on the Slugger thing, but quite literally a different pitch on horror. And this, when I went into writing it, I was like, I finally feel ready to write this idea, this character. And I've written a script for Slugger in the past. God, I went through a phase where I thought every movie had to be like this endurance test, like 10 fucking pages of actors just talking, telling stories, like real deep, like Tarantino shit. And like, I love writing like that. It was fun. And I just like was having fun making these people talk to each other, and they were saying ridiculous shit, telling stories. But to some extent, as a screenwriter, I've learned how to rein it in and make everything a little bit more contained and everything a little bit more, how do I say, refined. I know how many fucking pages the scene needs to be. I know how to get there late and leave early in a scene. When you're writing, that's really good advice. You don't want to explain like, every fucking moment of somebody's life. You got to be abbreviated, and that's a little advice if you're any writer. Like, don't worry. It's like if you show a guy wake up, his alarm clock, get in the shower, brush his teeth. You know what? He could hit the alarm clock and you could show him walking out the door with a cup of coffee. You get what I'm saying? Abbreviate it. Don't ever fucking think it. But that's kind of how I felt about Slugger. Writing it, I felt like I had created a script that it was different than my short literature I wrote for it. It played on some of the lore from that, but it gave me the ability to craft a movie that felt authentic not only to me, but to the characters, the voices of the characters. Everything felt real about it. I'm going to go back and refine it. There's things like details I need to add and stuff to just build the characters and enrich the world and the universe. But yeah, and I'll say this on Slugger. I know I've pitched a few movies on Unscripted and said like, oh, we're getting started. I think I was like post Peninsula Nights, just so motivated to just make another movie, get it done. And I was almost wearing myself out. And this movie, I'm going to enjoy the process. I'm going to build towards it. It's not a race, it's a marathon, and I need to keep that in mind. But with Slugger, it's going to be the movie that I'm going to champion it all the way through and try and make this thing kind of like my flagship. That's just how it feels, like just the energy around it for me personally is my hot take. But I feel like it's the idea that if I promote it and people love the character and people want to support, this will be the movie that will get legs. And I honestly think, and this is going to sound bold, but I think this could be America's next great horror slasher character. And a character that people would want to dress up for, or like on Halloween rather, that people would want to go to the theater and see. And there is something nice about seeing a horror movie, like a communal horror experience. It's been a while since I've done it, but I can remember when I was a kid in the 2000s, like Hostel, that was a huge movie. I think I mentioned that on another episode of Unscripted, but Eli Roth's Hostel, seeing it with my friend, we snuck in underage, and it was fucking crazy. I mean, my friend literally went to the bathroom to throw up. He was like that fucking like disgusted by the film. And I personally just thought like, wow, this is so fucking crazy. I didn't know movies could even be like that. So for me, it was very like mind fucking blowing. But I remember being very young, maybe same age, honestly, in that same bracket, but seeing like Freddy versus Jason in theaters. It was like a big deal because they were taking two horror characters and having them fight on screen. And it's a fucking, it's a title fight of fucking horror, the two biggest. And that was very crazy. I remember seeing The Strangers in theaters. It's weird thinking back to theaters and how that used to be. Cause like, now you go to a theater, you pick your seats before. You don't want to sit next to somebody you can see who's going to be sitting next, or not who, but like if somebody will be sitting too close to you. And I get it. I like my space the older I get, and it makes sense. But it's like, fuck, like we've really moved away as a society. I remember going to movies and like you'd end up sitting and being nice to your mom, like I'll sit over here. And then some fucking like, old man or whoever the fuck sits down. And you're like, I just don't know this guy at all. And like, you're kind of there for the next 3 hours, maybe 2 hours, just trapped. You can't move. What are you going to do? Get up to take a piss when the whole fucking row is full? I'm talking like, you're going to see like Pirates or some shit back in the 2000s. It's going to be a full house. So the experience has changed a lot. Some of the cinemas I go to around the area are extremely like luxurious, so they kind of like make it so like even if you're sitting like a row above, you can't see the people below you and you can put your feet up. They've optimized it for the modern day, to say the least. But yeah, the communal experience of seeing a horror film, it's truly changed. And I guess it goes for anything, but yeah, with horror particularly, I feel like horror's really been missing from the theater. I watched Until Dawn. I guess that was a movie that actually played in theaters, but that was a fucking fantastic horror movie. I couldn't imagine seeing it with a full house. It would have been great. But as we're moving into the era of most shit just not being in theaters, or the absence of good shit in theaters, which I'll talk about that in a minute. I know I've been bashing Hollywood a lot on Unscripted, and I don't mean to. I think they're actually doing some smart things, but the box office is missing some of the quintessential films that make Hollywood so fun, which is like the subculture of horror, which is, and maybe even indie, but like the last indie movie that played in theaters, like indie, was fucking Anora. And it's zero bad things to say about Anora. It's a hit. More movies like that should be getting into the theater. But same with horror. They need to make more room for like horror movies that are maybe more in tune with like classic horror, what like fans might actually like. And I don't feel like we've been hitting the mark. I think horror, like I've said this before, we got like Ari Aster, and these movies are more artistic, art house horror. They're going in a direction that's far different. You know, I watched Clown in a Cornfield. I don't know if I talked about that the other day, but Slugger kind of is like similar, not the same, not as like, I wouldn't even call it corny, but like I think Slugger's a popcorn movie for sure. But like, I think this is a little bit less corny than that. It's more bro horror in terms of like the way the people are and the characters, a little tougher. But with that being said, I think the box office, like it needs like more fun movies like that. It needs more like horror in general, because a lot of the shit that's playing, and there's like Megan and some of the big hits. You got James Wan and some of the other guys putting out stuff. But anyways, I think there's like a demand for the new slasher or another slasher. I was even thinking about it. I'm like, when was the last Friday the 13th movie? Like, it's just been fucking years. And it's like, this IP is good. People want it. The most recent Halloween movies are cool. David Gordon Green's fantastic. I personally liked them. I even liked Halloween Ends. A lot of people are critical of it. I thought it was a great way to conclude that, you know, I wouldn't even call it that particular trilogy, sure. But like Laurie Strode's story, and I'm sure she'll be back. They always are. But yeah, it's just horror's kind of been in a weird spot. And I really think that there's a new wave of filmmakers in America. And it's not just me. I see other people amongst my peers that are sprouting up, and people are kind of at that phase where like the indie filmmakers that are like, that were 10 years ago and now are in their 30s are like, hey, fuck it. Like, we're going to make this on our own terms. We're going to take the big shot. We're not going to fucking settle for anything less than what we want to do. And that's how I feel with Slugger. Slugger is going to be, in my opinion, a defining film in not only my catalog of work, but also for American horror. And I know these are bold fucking statements, and maybe I sound like a complete arrogant fucking prick, but I think, yeah, sometimes you have a feeling, and I don't know, the script seems like it's the right script, and it just seems to be going in the right direction. So I'm really excited to bring Slugger to life. We're going to be working on a short format version of it to kind of just, you know, not only lock in the IP officially, but also create, you know, a visual for people to see, and keep working on the journey from there. You know, I'm pretty confident in the script. I think like some, you know, obviously, like here's another thing with screenwriting. You're going to be writing all the way up until the fucking day that the scene shoots. You just go back. You go back. You go back. You go back. It's the nature of the fucking beast. And honestly, like, I enjoy it. I like going back and drafting and chipping away. And it's like almost like making a statue. You're like, okay, a little bit here, a little bit there, chisel, you know. And eventually you have this beautiful statue, this well-chiseled script that allows you to, you know, go out and shoot a movie confidently. And still, there's always room for different things to happen on set. Never get too caught up in how you wrote it. And I mean that in regards to like, yeah, of course, certain dialogue's important and it's good to stick to a script. But if you wrote like, oh, he walks in here and shit, like your screen direction, like when you get there, block it out, see how the actors move, you're not going to know until you get there. And if you try and fight it and just be like, I had it a certain way. Like I remember on Peninsula Nights, we shot one scene. I was trying to get it down the staircase. I kept panning down and it was just, there's people walking in, people fucking looking right at the camera. Like, what are you doing? And it's frustrating, but that happens. And like, you know, you got to compromise a lot. I think on Slugger, it'll be a more controlled environment. I think we'll have a spot or space rather where like, I'm looking for the locations right now, but the proper location where it's not going to be a hassle. Because when you shoot in public, and especially if you shoot something unfortunately unpermitted, and I know some people are unhappy about that, but you know, it is what it is. If you are determined to make a movie, you're not going to let permits or anybody's limitations get to you. But that being said, with Slugger, you know, everything will be done proper, have a location, not have to worry about public interference, etc. We did have people on Peninsula Nights coming up to me and trying to like harass me about filming. It's like, hey, dude, like, I'm not hurting anybody. We're just filming some fucking footage. But anyways, that being said, yeah, Slugger's going to be kind of the new long haul project. And I don't mean like, oh, it's going to take so long to get made. It's just, that's the project that I'm working towards right now. And I'm still going to do some fun stuff in between. We're going to do some short form and maybe even other features. But Slugger's the one I'm like really committing the most of my time and energy to actually getting on its feet and making this a legitimate horror film. Like I said, America's next best slasher. I'm very confident in the idea. And if you want to check out the short form IP, go go on to Amazon and just look up Slugger, Devin Thomas. You'll find it, and you can read a little bit about the story of Slugger. Anyways, with that being said, I've been doing a lot of camera testing as well this past week. I've been I had this huge like fucking camera journey, because when I started out, I just used what I had, at home. And I remember I went to film school, and a big selling point at the time was they had the red digital cinema camera. They had the red one, the same camera they had shot like The Social Network on. And when I went to film school, I was like, wow, like that's a huge selling point. I'd love to learn how to use this technology. And that's exactly what I did. I went to film school. I learned how to use the red. I got red certified at a very young age, like 20, 21. So I've been deeply invested in the red camera system for probably the past 10 years. And, the last one I bought was a Komodo. I shot Peninsula Nights on it. It was a great camera. But, every good thing has their flaws. And, I got to this point where I was like, God damn, like the footage, like alone, I probably spent $4,000 or $5,000 in hard drive just to store footage. And when you're storing footage, especially high quality footage like red footage, you don't want to have the fucking chance that you might lose this footage after going out and putting all those hours into shooting. You always back it up. But I was going through 5 terabyte hard drives like fucking hotcakes. So I had to keep buying 2 hard drives at once. So, we're spending like $300 every time I go to fucking Best Buy on just hard drives, just storage. And it was like every couple of nights we'd shoot, and I'm like, fuck, I'm out of space. Then editing this shit in post. The files were just so enormous. It was so clunky in the program. I just had constant trouble with it. And after making a feature on the red camera, like I like red, the quality's superb. There's things I like. There's things I don't like. I don't like their post workflow management. I think it's really fucking bad. Their color science is good. I think you get just as good on some other products. I'll mention those in a second. But this isn't to bash red. But also, while being so invested in red sold out to, who was it again? Not Samsung. Fuck, I can't even remember who it was. They sold out to another company, some Korean company. And it's all good, but fuck, it was brutal because, they were such a small boutique American company, and it was like a little bit of a letdown to people. It was Nikon. That's who they sold to. And I think people were a little let down when they sold the company. Jared Land, he's the president, CEO, whatever. It's a little disappointing because, so many people were like, hey, like we really love like the culture of red. And it was kind of almost like being at a car club. If you owned a Ferrari, something kind of changed. You could see the forums changed and people didn't want to talk so much on them. And it's all good. It's just, it felt like kind of treasonous to some extent. It's like, oh, like you guys are fighting like Nikon in court over your patent for this technology on their, the way their fucking red coat is. And I don't know. It felt a little weird, the whole situation. And hindsight, whatever, year to date, it's probably been over a year. I've gone through a few cameras. I've owned the Panasonic HCX2, fantastic camera. And it just wasn't meant for cinema. But if you're a broadcaster or something, that's a great camera to just, get. And I finally, like, I hate to say it, but like, I got to the point where I was like, like, I just think I'm going to just completely abandon red. And that's what I did. I moved to Sony, and it's just fucking great. I have no bad thoughts on Sony. Big thing that people used to tell me back in the day was like, one, you have to have a cinema camera, which is, I think technology wasn't there in 2013, 14, 15. Like, they hadn't made the jump yet to like the newer Sony technology, and cameras were good, but like if you saw movies around that time that people were filming on lower budget, like Sony, Canon, Panasonics, Nikons, etc., Luminex, they were like mumblecore films, those of Swanberg and maybe like Gerwig and stuff. But they just never looked like the way like a modern like Sony camera looks. And now everything's so good. It's hard to tell the difference between these cameras at this point. That's another thing. I keep beating this horse, but like if you're a filmmaker and you're like, I just can't make something. I can't make something good. And it's like, man, you could pick up like a used Blackmagic for pretty cheap. I'm not saying go buy a Blackmagic, because that's also kind of like those cinema cameras, like they're good, but they can be fickle, and maybe go with just a name brand. Like these big brands are big for a reason. That's what I've been, kind of my epiphany in even like the film world is like, okay, some of this gear is tried and true. But anyways, that being said, like if you want to make something now, like the barrier of entry, I think is a lot lower in terms of quality, because you can get a really good fucking look for a pretty good price if you know what you're doing. But that also goes into what I've also been saying on here. Like, you want to be a writer, right? You want to be a DP, you better fucking be filming and testing and editing and learning how to use this shit. Because if you don't, you're never going to fucking know. And anyways, my point on all of this isn't to bash Red Cinema camera. It's just say, like, I think end of an era. I think they had great technology when they were first starting out. I think their sensors are great. I know they licensed a lot of their sensors to Panavision. But I think it's just kind of the end of the road for them being the premier cinema camera company. I know Hollywood likes it. I think if you're a big production like Netflix or somebody who's highly invested in Red, those are going to be the people that carry on that Red torch. And, you know, I even just saw screenshots from the latest Superman on their behind the scenes. It was like Red and Panavision did a like collaborative post on Instagram where they showcased that the newest films were shot on Red cameras, or this newest Superman rather. And that's great. And I think if you have the fucking money and the workflow and the computing power to do all that shit, yeah, go for it. It's fucking dummy quality. But you don't need it if you're trying to make an indie movie or something that's not requiring like massive VFX. Maybe you're not even going theatrical. If it's going straight to streaming, whatever quality you get is going to play good on probably 100 inches, whatever the biggest fucking screen. If somebody's doing a projector at their house, they're balling. They're going to watch that movie because they love it. That seems, why else, right? But anyways, I been thinking a lot about that. I'll move into actually talking about this new Superman. I did not see it, but I heard it did pretty good at the box office. I know it was a little bit of a quagmire. James Gunn and I think Sean Gunn, his brother, said a lot of stuff that was like politically enraging to some people. I personally didn't give a fuck, but he made it sound like the movie is about an immigrant story or whatever. And then they talked about how they changed the slogan from Truth, Justice, and the American Way to Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow. I don't agree with that. I do like American Way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, whatever fucking side of the political spectrum you're on. I just think, you know, there's nothing wrong with liking or loving America. And also, if that's what Superman stands for, that's what he stands for. We don't need to change his character, you know, to not offend people. It's just what his name is or his slogan is. So I thought that was stupid. I don't care about him being an immigrant or an alien from space. I think that's kind of like, you know, sure, if that's the direction the story's going in, that's the direction the story's going in. I haven't seen it. I'll judge it when I see it. But that was like kind of the headline around the movie. It was like there was negative press. Will it affect the box office? Doesn't look like it did too much. I think people like Superman regardless of their political beliefs. So it says here that they made about $217 million at the box office this weekend, $112 million domestically, which is a pretty good kickoff for like a DC franchise. I think Batman Begins, when it started out, was like, it was like a 3-movie thing. But yeah, I think this is the start of James Gunn's DC like cinema universe that he's doing. And it's a pretty fucking good kickoff. Like, I think like, you know, it's a lot of money and people aren't going to the theater like they used to, but, you know, I was checking the theater because I wanted to go see F1. I said this on the fucking week before. F1 was in theaters and they had in like the nice Atmos theater and shit. And then boom, it's out because they put Jurassic World Rebirth in. And now this week, Jurassic World Rebirth is in the fucking small theater and Superman's in the big theater. So I was going through like my local theater has, you know, the little menu. You can see all the seats and all that shit on the website before you go. And even hours before, Superman was sold out like 10:30 at night. So I'm like, holy fuck, like it is summer. It is a Friday night. But still, like they're talking about how the movie theaters are dead. But it seems like if you put the right shit in, like a banger like F1, you know, Joseph Kosinski's follow-up to Top Gun Maverick, great director, movie star Brad Pitt. I haven't seen it yet myself. I still want to go. It's just these theaters have legitimately been fucking packed, even the matinees. But you have these big movies with like somebody like Pitt with a cool concept, great director. You have Jurassic World Rebirth with Scarlett Johansson. It had a huge opening, I heard. Maybe one of the biggest Jurassic's had. Maybe not Jurassic's biggest, but one of the biggest. I saw she's the most bankable movie star, female actress in the world. She's had the highest box office results. It's pretty fucking crazy. And then you have Superman, which, like I said, $217 million. That's something to sniff at. That's a big fucking opening. So what does this all fucking mean? Why do we care? I think it just means that the box office is healthy and that it's like, you know, it's a self-corrective machine. Hollywood sees where there's problems and they see who's not coming. They see what's not working. I think they're putting out the right shit. It is summertime. So this is usually when the best shit on the slate gets put out. It's when most people are free to go and see a movie. Disposable income feels disposable during the summer. You're in the hot weather. You're bored. No one has to go to work, or you know what? It's Friday night and the kids are all home because there's no fucking school. Let's go to the movies. I get it. It's just interesting to see how, like, it feels like theaters are healing. I also have noticed this is maybe just a social renaissance that's going on right now. People want to go back out. People want to do shit. COVID really, like, I think we all got super fucking comfortable staying at home and having, like, this delivered and just seeing shit on TV, and it's gotten old. People are over it. People want to go back out and they want to see people. They want to meet people. They want to fucking connect, and I think that's maybe part of the theatrical renaissance. I know people say, oh, the theaters are in trouble, but I drove by my local theater this past weekend. Like I said, I you know, out of curiosity and also boredom, I was just like, fuck, I'm going to cruise downtown. And it was popping. It was super fucking busy, and it's good to see. Yeah, I think it's healthy, and I think, Hollywood's had a weird last probably even decade. Like, I think movies have been like, there's been like some anomalies where things are really good, and it's not all bad. I'm just saying, like, a lot of the shit from the top down was bad, and it feels like things are kind of moving in a positive direction now. I think they've gotten their arms around the Hollywood problem. Money obviously is always going to be a problem in Hollywood, but they're spinning off a lot of these, I think, expensive companies that they had, like TV, and like I think it was A&E or Food Network or some shit like that was getting spun off by like Warner's or one of the networks, and people are still just, they're consolidating where they're focusing their time and money in their space. So I don't know. I think it's good. I think we'll see. We got a couple months of summer left and maybe a couple more hit movies, but let's just see what happens. I think it's healthy. I think it's really healthy. And, I'm not even the biggest Superman fan, but like, I hope it does well, because it needs to do good in general just to keep these like studios alive and doing what they're doing. And I'm not even pro studio, because like when you're making indie, like the chances of you making a studio film, it better be fucking like, they better send you an email saying like, we want you. Otherwise, like, I don't know. I think they've gotten, I've said this before, they got their legacy filmmakers, people that have been proven to make money in the past and or have success at the box office or in some part of Hollywood. And like, I guess that's the food chain. It's like, like the guy who's made it is going to be the one who makes stuff. But it's like, I really think the renaissance that's happening in the film business is outside of like this theatrical. Like, they've had some success with their blockbusters this summer. Great. I think the renaissance is happening in independent film. I just watched a short film. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was somebody I knew was in it. And it was pretty good. I was actually impressed. It was like this medieval film, and it's a short, but A for fucking effort. Like, this guy, I'd seen his previous work, and it was like, it was amateur in the respect of the quality. He wasn't hitting the Hollywood quality. You could see it was an amateur. And I watched a short film, and like, I'd seen his other shit, so I was like, maybe it'll be good. But watching it now, I'm like, you know what? If like anyone was going to do this or maybe go the distance, it's going to be this guy, because he's committed his fucking life to making his shit better and getting better at the craft and improving himself in that medium. And eventually he's going to make a feature, and eventually I think that feature is going to be popular, because he loves this genre of like fantasy and like Lord of the Rings shit. And it's just, some people, if you got to be the right guy to steer that ship and like go the distance, and he's going to be the guy, and eventually he's going to make something. He's going to be like a Pete Jackson. He's going to make something so fucking good that they're not going to be able to say no. And the only reason he's going to get to where he's wanting to go or have the success he's going to have is because he's not stopping, and he's not taking no for an answer. He's going out and saying, fuck you, Hollywood. I'm going to make a movie myself. And I've used this example before, but like the Huns over the wall, in Mulan, they're going to toss that hook, and he's going to pull himself right up over by fucking, hair of his own ass and make this shit happen. And that's a game. You can't sit around waiting for anyone. And that kind of goes into my whole philosophy on filmmaking, even with Slugger. It's like, you know what? Like, we got to bring this thing to life if we want it to happen. And that's exactly what we're going to fucking do. And yeah, anyways, guys, I think that's all I got to say today. I just wanted to touch base, say hi, and fucking yap on the mic for a little bit. I hope you guys all have a good week. I'll talk to you guys all again, and we'll fucking chop it up, talk shop, and talk a little Hollywood talk a little screenwriting, and I'll see you guys next week. This is another episode of Unscripted with Devin Thomas.